Well, hello there, happy innovators. How are you guys doing today? How is your week going, huh? How's it going? How are you doing? You getting things done? Are you behaving or are you misbehaving? I know it's been a while since I've done a Singularity podcast, and I apologize for that. You know what? I just couldn't think of anything that I really wanted to talk about. And, today it was kind of the same thing. I really couldn't think of a specific topic that I wanted to talk about, but I put my mind to it, and it didn't take me very long. I came up with a couple of things I think that I could throw out there and kind of, see how people respond. I guess where I want to start today is I want to talk a little bit about that video that I just released for the War Drums of Peace, because there's been a couple of questions that I've gotten about that video, and I just wanted to clarify a couple of things about that particular video. Now, as you may or may not know, I'm sure by now, if you're listening to my podcast, or if you have been for any length of time, you know that I am in the throes right now of writing new material, and I've actually started to release new material too, which was not my original plan. But I want to talk about it today because it ties into that video that I just released, obviously. And there's a bit of a story behind this strategy, I guess you could call it, for recording and releasing my new material. In the past, it's been a very kind of linear process. I write a bunch of songs, maybe 20 songs, and some of them may be older songs that I decided to revisit or something like that, like with the Escons album that I released back in 2017. Some of those songs were brand new, some of them were older and had been kicking around a while, and some of them were just songs that I decided I wanted to revisit, right? And, I picked the best songs out of the bunch, and I call it an album, and that's how I've always done it. But this time around, I decided, that I wanted to be a little more creative and a little more artistic, for lack of a better word, with the new songs that I was working on. I felt with the Escons album, although it's pretty good, in hindsight, I still find it kind of lacking. There's a couple things about that particular album that disappointed me, years out now, like years later, listening to it now. And it's not a bad album. It's just, I felt that my songwriting had become a little too mechanical. I wasn't branching out enough, or kind of stretching out enough intellectually and creatively with the songs. I don't know, maybe that's all in my head or something, maybe I'm wrong. But it's just the way that I felt. So I knew going into this new bunch of songs I'm working on, I wanted to approach it differently. And, just over the course of the past, I guess it's been about a year now since I started to write, new songs come along, new ideas emerge, and, I started to formulate my plan for how I wanted to release the songs, and, this song will be first, this song will probably be second, those kinds of things, right? And what's funny is that's not what wound up happening. Because what started to happen was, and this has happened before in the past with my songwriting process, I started to write two different styles of songs, basically. It's like with pipe choir and PC3, the music tends to be a little more ambient, a little more chilled out, probably a little more positive, like in the themes and stuff like that. But there's always been this other part of me that, enjoys music that's heavy. Like, I grew up listening to heavy metal, and I was a drummer, obviously, as you probably know by now. And, I was hired out a lot for bands that were heavy and stuff like that. It was what I was known for, it was what I was good for, So there's always been this part of me that likes the really heavy music, not so much like death metal and black metal and all that stuff. I mean, a lot of that stuff most of the time sounds, it all sounds the same to me, but there's been a handful of bands like Filter and Rob Zombie, White Zombie. I thought they were fantastic. Rob Zombie is one of the only musicians that I can think of that really got the idea that, when a song is heavy, it's not necessarily fast. It's about the drums, it's about the beat. And Rob Zombie, is like a master at coming up with drum beats and guitar riffs that are sometimes very slow and just really heavy, and I could go on and on about the different heavier bands that I like. I won't though, but the point I'm making is that, there's a real part of me that enjoys that adrenaline kind of thing. And, just recently my wife was telling me about this concept. I guess she got it from Brian Eno, which is hilarious, but good for her, listening to him talk. She's not even a musician, and she listens to this guy talk, and he's just so brilliant, a lot of the time. And he was talking about these things called the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, and that different styles of music appeal to your parasympathetic nerves, and other kinds of music appeal to your sympathetic nerves. Okay? Now, I'm not sure. I might be getting this backwards, but I think that the parasympathetic nervous system is like satisfied by, chilled out music, ambient music, calming, relaxing music. And the sympathetic nerves are satisfied by music that, has a beat, it gets you up and running and maybe dancing, and, it has energy to it, right? Like these two different paths that you can take, while listening to music, or choosing to listen to certain kinds of music. And it just so happens that, I am generating, right, some music that will satisfy the sympathetic nervous system, the heavier stuff that I do and I love to do. And I make this other kind of music that's, appealing to the parasympathetic nervous system, right? Now, like, I guess I never had a problem, making different kinds of music. Like, I was never concerned about genre or anything like that, like being classified as, an ambient band only, or a hard rock band only. I wanted to be able to do whatever I want to do. So sometimes, right, I want to make music that's heavy. Sometimes I want to make music that's chilled out and ambient, right? And every once in a while, I'll make some kind of music that's like, maybe a little bit too heavy. At least I feel that it is. And that's the case. That's what happened a few years back when I was releasing the PC1 Division album. Okay? It was like a body of work that I had made, I was happy with. It was probably a little bit heavier than Pipe Choir. It wasn't really, like, in my opinion, it wasn't really appropriate to release it under the moniker of pipe choir. It was just a little too heavy, a little too different. So I decided to come up with this idea of PC1, which was a name that I would release music under that was different from pipe choir. You know, maybe it was acoustic based only, or it was really heavy, or something like that. You know, I released the Wilderness album under PC1. I released the Division album under PC1. And I was always really happy with that idea, you know, of kind of having a separate avenue, right? Now, a while back, I did an interview with this one dude, and he was asking me, you know, about this idea of like, why do you have pipe choir and PC1 and PC3? Like, why don't you just have it all under one name, you know? And that was a good question, okay? But trust me, there's rhyme and reason to how and why I do certain things, especially releasing music under a different name. And it was, you know, obviously because I wanted them to be separate, right? To different styles. But with this new material that I'm working on, okay, I'm kind of abandoning that a little bit. Like now, I guess I kind of feel that now that you, my audience, have heard the difference between PC3, PC1, and pipe choir, you can kind of hear the difference, right? You know, you're familiar, right, with the different styles of music that I make. Now would probably be a good time, or would be interesting, to pull all of that stuff into pipe choir now. I guess that was my thinking, right? That was my vision, right? Like, now that I've established these other sounds that I make, and you are familiar with them, when I make a pipe choir song, you know, featuring PC3, you kind of get the idea that it's like going to be probably ambient and chilled out and really, you know, calm, right? But it'll still have a little bit of an edge because there's the pipe choir thing, you know, the song is there, but, you know, performed and recorded in a very different way. And then, of course, on the other hand, you know, you might have the PC1 acoustic kind of sound, right? Intermingling now with pipe choir. So that's kind of my vision. I don't know if it's too confusing the way I'm explaining it. It probably is. But that was my vision after having recorded some new material, and I started to accumulate a nice little pile of songs. You know, I realized, okay, some of these songs are really heavy, and I like that. And some of these new songs are really kind of just normal songs, right? So, you know, I'm thinking to myself, do I make like, you know, like a trilogy, you know, album trilogy or something, and have a soft song, then a heavy song, and then another heavy song and a soft song, you know? Or do I take the heavy songs and put them on one album, and then take the songs that are just normal or chilled out and put those over on another album? And ultimately, that's what I've decided to do. Okay? It took me a while to get here in this conversation, so I apologize. I haven't thought this out. I haven't written anything out. I'm just talking. So I might be a little scattershot, but bear with me, right? So now I'm in the situation where I have a nice little pile of heavy songs, a nice little pile of just normal songs, and what I'm going to do, I think, at this point anyway, is release a heavy album and a chilled out album, both pipe choir. But if you've been watching my YouTube channel, okay, or if you listen to me on SoundCloud or any of the other, you know, Spotify or whatever, you probably noticed that I'm releasing a song like Here Comes the Sun, and then immediately after that you get the War Drums of Peace, right? So those are the opening songs. Like, those are the first songs that I'm releasing of my newer material. I'm kicking it off. I'm not going to wait and, make cover art right away and have all the songs nice and tidy and finished, the body of work with an album cover and all that stuff. I'm not going to do that this time. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on a heavy song and I'm going to finish it. And then I'm going to work on a chilled out normal song and then I'll release that. You follow me? You get it? So in the year 2020, as far as I know right now, okay, there will be, probably by the end of 2020, there will be 2 completed pipe choir albums, but each one will be very different from the other, okay? So in case you were confused a little bit by, Here Comes the Sun followed up by the War Drums of Peace, 2 totally different styles of music. Don't worry. You'll see in the end how it all works out. But in the meantime, I will be trying to release new music as soon as it's done. Like, as soon as the next song is done, you'll get it. And I've also decided that I'm going to shoot videos for every single song I release. Okay? So, there you go. That's my plan for the future. Now, so like I said, you got the Here Comes the Sun video, and I released the War Drums of Peace. Now, in the War Drums of Peace video, I'm wearing this thing on my head, right? And I knew when I was releasing the video that it was probably going to be misunderstood, and I was going to have to explain myself at least a little bit, okay, with this video. Now, it looks like I'm wearing like this like halo on my head, okay? It's not a halo, okay? I'm certainly not a saint. It is a antenna, okay? That was my vision or my idea, and it was kind of funny because that all came about by accident, okay? Like, when you watch the video, at least I think it was a pretty intense video. Like, I thought it came out much better than I had hoped it might. But the funny thing is that I kind of stumbled into that whole thing, what do I mean? Well, I'll explain it to you. I was shooting the video for the War Drums of Peace, and I had this whole like costume thing that I had made years ago, okay? And I had decided I wanted to wear it in this video, right? Like, oh yeah, I'll grab that old thing that's, collecting dust, just sitting there, and I'll wear it and it'll be in the video. Well, I started to do some tests for the video, like screen tests, and it turns out like this collar kind of thing that I had made had this little like antenna thing sticking out of it, okay? And the original plan was for me to be wearing this collar in the video with this antenna thing sticking out of it, and that would be the costume. But I shot a couple tests, and I didn't really think it turned out that great. I was a little disappointed, so out of frustration, I just grabbed this antenna thing that I had sticking out of that collar. I just yanked it out, and I just put it on my head, and I started to film like another take, okay, but with this antenna thing on my head. Just kind of, what if? I ask myself that a lot. What if I just do this and I wear this, and what if, right? I'm just like, anything goes. Like, I'm open to anything. So I grab this thing, I stick it on my head, I start filming, and later on I go back and I look at what I did, and I start to kind of play around with it a little bit, putting some effects on it or whatever. Usually effects that I like normally never use. Like, I like to do that, like I like to go down the path I normally never go down, just to kind of see what might happen. And sure enough, man, I just kind of stumbled onto this thing, And I was like, whoa, 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 this looks pretty cool. Man, this is pretty cool, this antenna thing on my head. But I knew, even while I was editing the final video, I knew that there were going to be people who were going to ask questions about it. I just knew it. And, one of the questions was like, is this some kind of like, ancient sun god costume or something? Like, no, not an ancient sun god costume. It's just a happy accident. Like, that's exactly what it was. Like, that happens sometimes. I'm sure it happens for you. If you're a creative person, if you're creating things, making things on a regular basis, that kind of stuff just happens. You take a left turn, like out of the blue. Maybe you're using your Brian Eno oblique strategy cards, right? Or something like that. You grab a card, you come up with a different approach to what you're working on. That happens a lot for me. And I'm open to that when I'm working on new things, especially with this new music. So let me tell you, I don't know, I guess it may not sound like it to you guys, right? But to me, it's like I'm really trying to, I don't know, be a little more abstract in my approach to things, And so the War Drums of Peace video by Pipe Choir, you can see it on my YouTube channel if you're curious, this video that's kind of got people asking questions, It's a pretty intense video, at least in my opinion. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. Thought it came out pretty good. The song sounds pretty good. I'm happy with it. And that song was so old, it was like from 2010. It was a song I had written for the Marion Circle Drum Brigade. And just recently I had the opportunity to call up that session again in my system and just kind of listen to what it was. And, okay, what if I add this? What if I add a guitar? What if I do this or that? You see, the what if. It's huge. It's a huge aspect of the creative process, at least in my studio, when I'm working on something. I don't know how you are, but maybe your process is different. But for me, there's that question, I ask myself all the time, like, what if I replace the snare drum with toms, right? What does that sound like? Well, the War Drums of Peace is a result of that what if question, and a lot of my new material is kind of along the same lines. It's being made in the same way. It's coming from the same place. It's a pretty fun process for me. It's pretty fun to be, bouncing back and forth between songs that are really chilled and kind of like pretty and nice, maybe emotional, and songs that are a little more aggressive and, kind of tapping into my roots a little bit of the music that I grew up listening to and enjoying, and the music I still listen to and enjoy, because I do, like I said, I like a lot of heavier music. So that whole idea, of what if, it's a great way to, at least for me anyway, to kind of stretch out my mind and try to get a little more creative. Hopefully, when you listen to my new material, you'll be able to hear that, maybe not, and that's okay, but I hear it. I guess that's all that matters at this point. But stay tuned, because I'm going to be releasing a lot of new material. And, my original plan, when I first started to make the bot videos, when I came up with that idea, okay, what I wanted to do was start with the Pipe Choir debut album, right? And make a video for like 4 songs off of that CD, okay? So I made a video for Lights Up, I made a video for Metal, I made a video for Sansis FM, and I made a video for Dream On. 4 songs from my debut album. And then I would go to the PC1 Division album, and I would pick 4 songs off of that album and make a video for them. So that's where I'm at right now, chronologically, with my videos, right? So I'm going back into the sessions for the Division album. I picked 4 songs out, and I'm kind of, I guess, revisiting them. I'm, punching them up a little bit with some of the newer stuff I have, and the newer tools I have, and, it was 10 years ago, so a lot's changed in 10 years for me, production-wise, my capabilities. So, sure, I can hear all the things I would change immediately, all the things I can do to make it sound maybe just a little bit better. So, here I am, remixing 4 of these songs from the Division album. And, I get the idea. You know what? I'm taking the time to work on these songs. What if I include them? What if I include them in the new album? They're songs that I'm proud of. They're songs that I think are strong. They sound better with the new technology I have. I'm able to make them better. I think my voice is maybe a little bit better. Like I said, it's been like 10 years, an additional 10 years of singing songs. So that's when I was like, you know what? That's a great idea. I can do whatever I want. You know what I mean? See, that's one of the best things about being an independent artist. I don't answer creatively to anyone. I can do whatever I want. And I've always kind of felt, anyway, that it was kind of silly for like an artist to have a song that's really great, and they record it once, and maybe they'll do a live version or something, but that's it. For the most part, that's it. They never go back to it. And I always thought, what would it sound like if an artist who released a song, like, let's just say, for instance, Tom Petty, he had that song Refugee, or American Girl, any of those songs from way back in the day. It's like, what would it have sounded like if he had, reinterpreted that song, Refugee, in a modern studio, when he was older and he had more experience? Would the song sound different? And what's wrong with that, right? What's wrong with playing around with, the songs that you've already written and the songs that are already established? I think as an artist, you should have the freedom to go and, grab a song that's 10 or 15 years old, and why not, mix it in with the new stuff, right? And I just never understood why, record labels in the past haven't capitalized on that, and encouraged their artists to go back and revisit ideas, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a hit. It could be the song that wasn't a hit on the album. So that's where I'm at. I mean, I've always felt that way, in fact, some of the bands that I've drummed in the past kind of took my advice about that, like, hey, let's go back and redo that song that we did, 5 years ago. Let's go back in the studio and redo it, and then include that on the new album. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. So with the new pipe choir albums that I'm going to be releasing, the new music I'm going to be releasing, there's going to be some revisits. There's a couple of songs I have, particularly from the Division album, but not just from the Division album, that I think I could probably do a little bit better. And, I'm also going to, once I finish this video process for the Division album, the 4 songs that I'm going to revisit, the plan was anyway to go and do 4 videos from the Escons album. So I'm not exactly sure what 4 songs I would choose. I would imagine Through the Storm would probably be one. I think Mona Sheen would probably be one. Maybe Ignite to Light. I don't know. It's probably neither here nor there to you, but some of you are familiar with that album, I'm sure. And I would be happy to take your suggestions. If there's a song from Escons that you'd like to see a video for, 4 of the songs from that album are going to be made into videos, one way or another. Yeah, that's it. I talked about music all day today. It's kind of weird. I'm not used to doing that, but I am in the middle of doing all this right now. It's all happening right now. Got another video in the can. I'm working on another song. One chilled out song, one heavy song. And I'm just going to keep, as far as I know anyway, right now, I'm going to keep doing that until I have a nice solid album, each style of music, because pipe choir can be whatever I want it to be, and I'm an independent artist. I'm free, I can do whatever I want, and isn't that cool? I think it is, So anyway, folks, probably not one of the best Singularity podcasts I've ever done, but hey, it is what it is. I go into this thing sometimes with no script, no plan, and this is what you get. You get the real me. This is it. So anyway, folks, with that, this is Mike Bostwick from Pipe Choir Records signing off. And remember, folks, if you want to keep what you've got to give it away. Take it easy. Okay, all you happy innovators who remembered that I had decided to start putting some music at the end of my Singularity podcasts, well, congratulations to you if you're still hanging around and you're hearing this. The song that I selected for the end of this podcast is a song I did back in like 2013 or 2014. It's a song called It Feels Good to Feel Good Again. It's a track that I'm particularly happy with. I was when I did it originally, and all these years later when I listen to it, it still sounds pretty good. And this morning, my wife was walking around the house singing it, and at that time I hadn't decided what song I was going to choose, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to grab It Feels Good to Feel Good Again, and I'm going to stick that in there. And it's a pretty long song, PC3, Honest Wave song. Honest Wave being, I'm sure you found the definition by now. If not, go to any of my PC3 songs, and there should be a definition of Honest Wave music attached to it, like the genre that I made up for this music that I was making. But anyway, here it is, from 2014, I'll say, released on the album PC3 Ad Astra Volume 2. It was track number 4 on that album, and it was a song that I described in a previous podcast, so if you're curious to hear the story of It Feels Good to Feel Good Again, I believe, I think it was in the PC3 Ad Astra Volume 2 description that I did. Man, probably a couple years ago now. But anyway, here's the track, It Feels Good to Feel Good Again. Have a good week, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.